All right, so we're gonna buzz through this. I'm gonna try to keep it short. I have a couple of people gonna be giving up some updates, and then I think Peter's gonna probably need, I'm gonna guess, 30 minutes or so. So we'll get him in here when he gets in here, so. Amount of breath I've carried the chaser.
It's the hair.
It's a problem.
Win or no deal.
Yeah, we're gonna keep this all fast. Cards, everybody got cards, giveaways. Say it one more time, we draw. Definitely not everybody.
Mine is.
Yeah. You gotta be.
Yeah.
I got do some gratitude. I think.
Yeah.
Through all the. Great. You're all, they look so old. Let's do some gratitude, guys. So I'll start off at trying to remember 60 days, but one, I want to thank everybody here. We have an amazing group of agents and very the way that you guys show up. It was a down year as far as work goes, but we still crushed it. I think as an office and we're above the standard. But most importantly, the holiday party. I don't know who appreciate you showing, you know, it's the first time that ever happened. More people than RSVP actually showed up to it. We always figure 30% fallout. I think we had a 10% increase. But so the good news is we're gonna go back. It's gonna be on a Saturday this time and December 14th. We're already booking everything. And then we're just gonna add a few suggestions that were made, but I thought that was great. I appreciate everyone that showed up. Anyone that couldn't make it, please mark that down. I'm giving you 11 months notice. Anybody else? Get a few in here. I mean, we got a lot to talk about, so. Anything good that happened, personal, professional? in the last
I would
60
be great.
days? Go ahead.
I'll probably miss somebody, so if I do, I'm sorry, but Mindy, Kristen, Kate, and Amanda's not down here. I've had, there you are. I couldn't see you, Kristen was in the way, sorry. Have all been super helpful for me lately, a couple deals, and I super duper appreciate it. And Kate helped me win my listing presentation. So I appreciate all of you very, very much.
We got like 40, 50 people in here. We gotta get
I
some.
just thank like 10.
This is all
Yeah.
back. Gratitude for Keller Williams Keystone and Hometown Settlements is, you guys know I do a fundraiser called Bruce for Brains. So I do it semi-annually. Both of them have donated $400 to the fundraiser. We're actually at $4,400, which is double what we were in the first round. So, you know, it's
I went to that. It was really good. I think there was a few agents in here that went there. So you're
fun time.
mid-May, right? It's coming up. So
Yeah, like April 6th this time.
April, okay.
So then we're gonna have one in October.
So we'll be talking about that plenty, coming up and, but it was pretty neat. I mean, music, food, hanging out. So I did a good, Keller Williams presence. Yeah, it was packed. It was. I don't know if you had any more seats available, really.
And that was over 300 people here, some people there.
Yeah, that was good. Couple more. That's okay. If you guys see chairs,
I just want to say thank you to you, Ryan, for helping me out as much as you do and answering my text and my, oh, never mind. You don't have to answer that one. I just figured it out.
easy. Something's on fire.
Well, no, something on fire. He did actually get my ass out of hot water, so yeah, go to him.
I don't wanna make that reoccurrence, so. That's why I got Peter here today, to get all your questions down. We were not talking about next week. Few more?
I'll say something.
Okay.
So, I got that puppy, right? But it really wouldn't be a possibility for me by then if like I was able to bring the puppy to the office and like train it. And it's just thanks, Ryan, for just having the environment that we can work within to like just
People love it.
have that kind of lifestyle in general.
More people are bringing in dogs, which is funny. And obviously it's like uplifting because who does like a dog, especially when they're puppies. So it's easy. So now all I ask, keep it clean and we'll allow this to continue to happen. Maybe we'll do some dog day in the office when it's nice out and do it on a Tuesday so we can get the cleaners in after. It's so stupid or whatever, and we'll be good to go. But I think everyone loves it. Where is it? You could have brought it in. In a cat cage.
Is that how?
Let's do one more. We'll keep it going.
Yep, so we had a little Christmas party at the Hanover KW office last month. And a couple of the York agents showed up and Ryan was there, Rachel, Kristen, Ricky. And anyway, it was great that you guys came out, just made the trip up there. We had a fun time and as much as we love being a part of the bigger group, we appreciate the support of the smaller offices too, so.
It was a great turnout. From other East show up, which was awesome. I mean, that speaks volumes to how comfortable they felt walking across the street or down the road and being in a Keller Williams building. I know a lot of times that can be nerve wracking, but and then you guys just posted about Cinco de Mayo party at the place, so we'll be pushing that. That'll be exciting. So, all right. Anybody else? Keep going. Let's go through this real quick.
Win-win or no deal, come on, man.
Mindy, you want to say
Always come first.
Commitment in all things.
Communication, seek first to understand. Creativity, ideas before results.
Keep going.
Teamwork, together everyone achieves more. Trust starts with honesty, equity, opportunities for all. Success results through people.
the effort you put into this is so great.
Change up. Should say Keeson.
Yeah, we're gonna keep this moving. So here. And. And the window, thank God. But that was. And this, we were supposed to do that, the ice sculpture, that was pretty bad. That was great. The DJ was good, we stole him from Shauna, so that's, we're gonna keep him next year too, but what a great venue. Good food, did everyone enjoy it? Thank you. All right, so we kind of just went through December. I know we're talking about, I wanted to go over the year end. This is the state of the company, right? So it's good for you guys to know how we're doing. We'll be talking about this a lot more in our awards event in March coming up, but so we ended the year with 190 agents. Still can't get over that 200. It's driving me nuts. But we're destined to do that this year after Rayak dues and all that happened this month. But 190, so that's great. We're just teetering on that 200. We gained 62 for the year, so that was a good number. Tim John still holds the record at 72, so I need to get that one. Closed units, we ended at 130. I think we all kind of saw the exhaustion and the taper off in that fourth quarter. 130, like that's probably one of our lowest months, but again, given the end of the year, we did end at 1798 for the year. Closed sales volume, we were just under $500 million for the year. That's a big number to say. And then you go into listings taken, listings sold. This is what drives the market share. And what I say every month is that we want to be over that 50% mark, right? So versus contracts written versus actual sales, we want to make sure that our listings are over that. We've been teetering right around that 55 to 60%, because we want to keep that high. Average sales price, again, for the year, we were averaging as agents, 250 grand. And then we paid out over $11 million in commissions this year. Great job, guys. Oh, your team's on a cruise, so you are in these slides.
Yeah, it'll be quick. Yeah, Kristen got that under contract there in December. It's already closed. It was from a referral, so that's cool.
She took a $88,000 lead the cat fire and.
Yeah, I helped her, show
Yeah,
that
that's
house
cool.
too, then it,
And then
Turned
they
into
had,
that.
they referred her a $1.2 million fire. Crazy. 3 months in the books.
yeah.
Pretty nuts.
Pretty
That's
cool.
why you never turn down a lead, even if you're like, I don't wanna go to the city. Cause it was a cash fire that turned into something bigger.
Mhm. Brandy, right over there, got that under contract and I think you already closed on it, right? So, I mean. Oh, also, before we move on to this, that was also an in-house deal, I believe, with Jeff.
Yep.
So that's another cool thing to know about that.
Good.
PC night out,
Keller Williams is in all areas.
and bringing in money. PC night out, we're gonna have it at South County, right down the road here, about like what, 4 minutes or so.
The rain, the weather didn't play into your favor that day. That's the day we got like 3 inches of rain.
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember that, so.
yeah, those are the rocks.
I heard.
Yeah, the one,
So February 6th, from 6 to 8, we're back here in the York section. You guys want to add that to your calendars? You want to keep going?
yeah, K-score, I got the cards with me if you guys want any. Goal is like 15 new ones a month. Right now, I believe we're at 18. Thank you, Pottle.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give a shout out to him, just drop 5 people in there. So there's that. I'll hand out cards here at the end if anyone's interested in.
These cards have the QR code on it. You
Mhm.
need just to write your name on it, have them scan it, then they can enter their information and puts them in the system. Much easier process, and then they can do it at their leisure.
Two.
There it is.
Good deal.
There's the QR code if you need it, but that's on the card.
Mhm.
There it is again. You have what, 13 in December, you're at 18 now.
Yeah, 18.
So we were
currently.
13 when the slides were made a couple days ago. That's awesome. Good.
Yeah, this I don't know much about, but it's basically for anyone that wants to learn for a career in real estate, basically for newbies or just anyone interested in kind of getting their questions answered. Anyone can come, but I mean, that's pretty much all I know with that, if you know anything.
We
else.
used to do career nights back in the day. Mindy, did you do them?
Yes.
Did them stuff? I think it's a good way, especially now that we have the schooling scholarship, incorporated scholarship. That we bring career nights back. Jamie's gonna run that 4th Tuesday of every month. We'll do it here. If it gets big enough, maybe we'll rotate it around. If Dave's kind enough to have us at, if we need a Hanover career night, maybe we'll do that out there as well. So we'll be bringing them back. It's just an hour in the evening. All right, new ALC was brought on this year. Thank you to everyone that served last year. If you don't know what the ALC is because you're new or just haven't heard of it, it's our Associate Leadership Council. Every year we get new individuals. It's a volunteer position. So really you're taking the time to help the market center in several different ways. So we broke it down to like culture, productivity, profitability, and growth. We all met, and this is our new folks for the year. We all met, what was that, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. We already have pretty much the year planned as far as the big things that we're gonna do. So look for a lot of updates from the ALC as to new things that are coming. And of course, if you're interested in helping out, you can always help these folks out. I'm sure they would love that. And if you're interested in being on the ALC in future years, please see me and we'll make sure that we get you in. So welcome to those guys for the ALC. Thank you for donating your time for 2024.
Bill, you want the puppy?
I don't think you had the puppy yet. Oh, no, not.
Yeah, he did have it that
Oh, yeah,
day.
yeah, he did.
He was.
Because he was looking at his video. That's it. Reed. Reed. Oh. Well, thank you, Reed, for your service as the REAC president. I'm sure you're thrilled for it to be here, but I wanted to give you, if you want to say anything for 2 minutes, I know you have something coming up tomorrow for those that aren't.
Yeah. Is the installation being held at the Yorktown Hotel at 8:30. If you haven't signed up yet, I'm sorry, I think. So it is a full sit down, no, it is a full buffet breakfast. And then speakers, and
This is when you're.
the opportunity to say goodbye to a really great board. And that I was so proud to be associated with.
And you're handing this over to Jason Phillips, right? This is your like
Correct.
kind of.
Several years.
So let's give Reed a round of applause. Three, you guys are all sitting again. So let's get Jason Phillips over here. He'll be the brokerage that holds all the presidents.
Can move up to the board of directors and then you can be president. So start.
Yeah, can I say something concerning the board?
Yeah.
And, we need new thinkers. Ways to upset the apple cart a small bit and see things in a much different way than just as the typical black and white. I'm not sure ever if that's tied to youth or if that's tied to enthusiasm and or both. So I urge you all, I believe that volunteerism is a great thing. There are really good things that can be associated with RAAC and some things that are somewhat iffy from time to time, I must admit. So feel free to sign up for a committee. I am here a lot, so is Tina and then Brian in his office in Hanover, so feel free to see us.
Great, thank you,
We
Reed.
need volunteers.
Keep going. Thank you, Reed. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for your time. December birthdays, I'm not gonna go through all of them. I did see what Tina's in there, Belinda, actually, put a few in here today. Happy birthday to you guys, Adam, you 22 now? You're up there, what? The slide or- Happy birthday to you. I think we celebrate you on the page. I know we should. The comment. Anniversaries again. Happy anniversary to everybody that's been here for, it started in December. January birthdays, we got some coming up here. Let's see, Monsters in the Park. Joe Mancuso just had his. Happy birthday to you guys. And January anniversaries, and we're celebrating 2 months. Welcome to KW. So the nice thing about having 2 months is it looks like we just recruited all these people really quickly. I got you in this one. Welcome to you guys. Who else? Mustard is here. He must have been back there, I think. So welcome. We got a couple returners. Julie, you're back. Thank you for coming back. Martha, Nick, he came back. Oh yeah, you, Nick. Is Nick on this one? No, because he just got his license.
Yeah.
You want to introduce Nick?
That's Nicholas. It's Nicholas, by the way.
Shorten it.
Nicholas is fun.
Okay.
And we're working together now.
So he's
He joined the
team,
team.
he just got his license.
He just got his license. For it passed the first time. Right? He's a one and doneer.
Did you go through Pace School or did you do it a different version? Like for your classes?
I went to RAAC.
You went to RAC, okay.
So he joined the Acardo team and we're getting started this month.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody.
Yeah, his name's Nick.
Ron Clever, Cap, in 2 months. 1 month actually. So, he capped very quick. He's out of Chambers. We see his name up there all the time, except for he must have took, December off, but, he crushes it every year. The last 2 years has been big for him. So Ron Clever, congratulations, Mr. Horn. All right, production board, we got, like I said, 2 months to go over. Let's start in November, which is your left. Mike Jones took a volume, so congratulations. Oh, I'm sorry, this is November, another slide. So Mike Jones, November, 2.6 mil, where's he at? Oh, Stand up. Let's get back to him. So 15 hit it for units and is that your record? The record for you. And then Ron Cyber, there he was. Kate Roches hits the board again. Matty Randall hits the board with a mill. And he only did that with 2 units. So I love celebrating new people that hit the board that don't get to make it every month. Lane Thrush took the team. He had a big month as well. Liz, Colby, Dave, and the Rick Keller team ended out the volume. Like I said, Mike, I think if everybody, Payola is the new one for the units at 3. And then all the teams, Liz, Colby, Neal, Dave, Lane, and Rick. So congratulations to you guys on November. December, Mike Jones hits again. What a difference of 2 months, right? Like it's kind of shows like when you get busy, months go down, and then all of a sudden you're gonna get, I already heard, I think February, you're gonna have to be over 1 million per individual. It's crazy. So comes and goes, but it was tight. It was a tight race. You got $3 grand from the top 2 spots. You got Lori in second, and I think 30 grand overall on just total volume. So congratulations to all you guys. There's 2 months hard work and end the year when there's big numbers. Now we hit the reset button again.
Do you know what happened with Mike and I?
No,
I had a listing
did he get out of line?
and he bought mine, his people bought mine, so then his listing, I took my people to buy his. Yeah, and it was the daughter of the people, of the parents that were the sellers for me. So you had 4 sides of like.
You like the person you're working with.
Thank you.
Events. So we got Winter Ignite. Anybody that's looking to kind of jumpstart, if you're slow right now, jump on the Winter Ignite. Dave sends all those out every week. They are on Zoom. John Maxwell's tomorrow. I think it's sold out. I'm not sure. If for some reason you want to get a ticket, I can see if they have any left. That is tomorrow in Drexel Hills. Train the presenter. These are all again regional things. The ALC is going to be working on. We're going to be bringing some internal classes coming up in the next couple months. So look for some of those, and we'll be partnering with Harrisburg and Lancaster on things too that they're going to be bringing to the regional area. So and then our next office meeting on the 21st. If you guys got this, it's York Township. I don't know. It's a recycling report. Did everyone get this? Have you seen this?
Called Lisa.
Yeah.
She said to make a note on it.
You gotta love when, because we work here, if you remember, Spring Garden taxed us, I think, too, for being there. This is a different form, so just make sure you fill this out and get that submitted.
What's that for?
It's a recycling report, so you have to.
Right here. So as an entity, you need to have a recycling.
Oh, so hand over here in order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parallels.
I shared with her that I work out of my car in all the areas. We have to just hang our license. He said to write it on there and they'll try to.
It's a direct, we took time to do it for you guys, but if it went to your address, you'll have to. John Maxwell tomorrow, as we talked about, family reunion coming up in Vegas next month. I think we got about 12 going from the office. If you're considering going, please let us know. We're starting to plan our happy hour event or family or our dinner event. So 25th to the 29th. Winter Ignite, we talked about that regional class. It's every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. You get the link in the calendar. Title, Amanda.
Yeah.
Why use it?
Illegal.
Well, you know, maybe.
Next time I'm gonna say who's not using Amanda, and we're gonna kill you. Before I give it to you, I just want to get, so let's welcome back Edwin. He took his license, he gave it back to the state for escrow for a little bit. Now he's back in the referral, but he has started a photography company. If you guys have been following him, some people in the office have used him. I know Greg has, and he loves them. I wanted to give him a couple minutes just to kind of speak on his new thing. Andrew, and then Peter's here, so.
Yeah, I have a little slideshow to help me out, but it's quite, it's like.
We couldn't add it slides yet. We know. We know.
No, you got it on, you got it on the small screen. But yeah, I'm excited to be back and to help you guys out with some of your photography needs. All right, there we go. Awesome. I know not everybody's gonna see it, but it's looking out. So my business is Renum Photography, and Renum stands for real estate and more. And my focus is photography and videography. So I just started last month, and in the first month, I helped 20 agents and 6 of them came from Keller Williams. So I appreciate the support. This is some of my work that I recently did, some of the bigger homes, and this one was for Greg right here. And yeah, they came out really nice, and I invested a lot into coaching so I can like really get the photos to look really good, you know. I don't want it to be a side hustle. This is my business, and I really want to grow with each and every single one of you guys. So why choose Renum Photography? So I offer next day delivery, and the prices are simple because I don't have employees, all that stuff. It's just me, so simple pricing, and I pay attention to details. So making sure like the city homes, wires are taken out, things on the fridge, all that stuff. I just do that for free, just because I want to make sure that the photos look good for you guys. So services that I offer, I do have a booking page, but this is just some of the services. It's photos, I have drone, I have video, layouts, 3D tours. Right now I'm pushing the Zillow 3D tours because they're half the price of the Matterports, and they're easier for me to do. And so those savings, I pass it on to you. And also add-ons as virtual twilights and virtual staging. So everything you guys do, I can do it as well, or you're doing with your other photographer. So I have 2 options. So option 1 is build your own package. So you can select the amount of photos you want, whether it's 25 or 40 photos. And then from there, you can select all the add-ons that you would like. Or you can select a package that's already done for you. And each of the packages have all services, like different services in there. And the drone package is 10% off. The real package is video, if you didn't know, is 10% off. And then the plus package is everything that I do, that's 20% off. And I enjoy doing the plus package. I usually do that the first time free. So my pricing, they're fair and simple. These prices allow me to do my work with joy. And then my offer to you guys is that the first shoot is free. This way you can try my services out at no cost. And a warning is that once you book it, you're gonna keep using me. And then there's more services here, but I want to keep the presentation short. If you have a listing coming up, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. So how to book, you can find me on Facebook on my bio. There's a link there on my pin post. There's also a link there as well. And I'm setting up the Google page and all that stuff now. Like I said, it's only been a month, so I'm looking forward to it as I grow. Any questions? Awesome. How you doing? Oh, Edwin Sandoval on Facebook.
Edwin, can you post on our KW page and all that information as well, so it's easy accessible?
Yeah. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll bring the move-in mortgage in, what's a little bit different, it's on.
I'm leaving it in my shop and paint it.
Yeah, way better looking.
We're doing it. You're pretty accurate to start the new year, but I want to try to bring so much speed that you're like, we don't need it.
You do it all.
Which direction am I going?
Other way.
Uh-oh.
There. My first slide, because I don't expect you to read. But the whole point of this is why waiting to buy could be your biggest mistake, and just gonna like throw some statistics in your face that you can also access via the brand website. So everything here you guys have access to. So at a very simple basic level, buying a house, making your payments is giving you access to an appreciating asset that's gonna go to equity. So the one asset that continues to appreciate in value, if we think back to COVID, all of our 401ks, all of that stuff tanked. Real estate was through the roof, and it continued on. So at a very basic level, these slides are year-over-year comparisons, starting in 2016. My next slide will get to 2023. Biggest takeaway from all of this is if you go to REACT, you access these reports yourself, you will see that year over year, the median sales price for both York and Adams County has done nothing but increase. There are some counties that have got, or some areas within the counties that have gone down, some have gone up, but average overall is an increase year over year. It's never gone down. So in the last 8 years, 2016 to 2023, the median sales price in York as a county overall has gone up $105,000. $105,000. So back in 2016, the median sales price was $159,000.
Crazy.
When, how did I do that? I wasn't even touching it.
Keyboard.
Oh my.
I told you it's finicky. You gotta master this.
Okay. See. So here we land at 2023. And if you look, York County, 249. We started at 159. So basically at a very basic level, what does that tell you? Your house that you buy now is going to continue to go up in value year over year over year. Obviously these are a little bit dense, probably to show to clients, right? But then REAC also gives us these cool little graphic-y ones that kind of break things down in a little bit more layman's terms. I see a lot of people post on Facebook, things like that. I think they're good informational things to look at. My note on these is if you look at both the homes sold year to date, and this is as of December, down 16% and 13%. And I think immediately your thought is like interest rates were horrible, so people aren't buying. But when I go to the next slide, keep that in mind, because we are going to go to another slide that gives us the information on kind of like all across the state of Pennsylvania, listing sales, median sales price. I think the most important thing to note here is on the inventory, as of December, we were at 2.94 months of inventory available. Typical balance market is 6 months of inventory. So even though interest rates, all of these things are working against us, inventory is still at half of what it should be in a completely balanced market. So interest rates 100% played a role in why home sales were down, but this plays an even bigger role because you can't make more inventory. You can build more houses, but beyond new builds, that's kind of the only new inventory, people moving out of state, things like that. So I think it's important to kind of note that year over year, even though listings are down, sales as a whole are down, median sales price is still climbing. So I think the main thing that we like to impart to people, because we all hear the same thing all the time, either interest rates are too high or we'll wait till prices go down. Prices aren't going down. We just went back to 2016. So like in the numbers overall, they are not going down. Rates will go down, not go up, they will not go up. So you hear us say like, you can date the rate, but marry the house. We tell people all the time they're on the fence. It's kind of like the one thing that hits them because they don't do this every day. They're not realtors, they're not loan officers. You can always refinance and get a lower rate anytime, right? But you can never go back in time and buy a house for less than you can buy it for rate. So that house that you want right now, in a year from now, it's gonna be $10,000, $15,000 more than it is right now. So you're costing yourself money by waiting for the rates to go lower. Last but not least, this is just kind of like a projection. Of where we expect things to go. And this is from the Mortgage Bankers Association of America. So there's a lot of junk on here. This is like new housing builds, mortgage originations. I think the biggest thing I wanted to point out here was the interest rates. So here's where we were through 2023. We were on the upswing. As we enter 24, they expect them to slowly trickle down. The Fed has announced that they will be cutting rates. They just haven't announced the timing of it, when it will happen, how quickly it will happen. So they're projected to stay consistent into 2025. We all know how that goes. It's an election year. So disregard that pretty much, because like anything could happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we could go into an anarchist crisis where there's no president elected, and then you just have to. Low sixes, mid fives, so. Yeah, you guys need us, we're always upstairs, first, we're on the right. Loan questions, is to have funsies, we have puppies often, so it was nice chatting with you, and if you need anything else, come and get us. Any questions? Awesome. All right, guys, have a great day.
All right, thank you, man of the hour. Peter.
Yeah, hey, where's your suit? Where's your suit?
No, it's all there.
How's those twins doing?
They're alive, not sleeping, but so I'm barely alive. Good morning, everybody. I'm Peter Moon. Yeah, 2 times to get the living. I'm just kind of here at your request to talk about a little things. I had a chance to speak with Ryan. There's a few things in particular that I'm going to go over. I plan to speak for like 10 to 15 minutes and then I'll. So try to make it interactive if you want. I teach orientation once a month. It's with me just saying if you're droning on about these topics. But if you do have questions, please let me know. Be as interactive as possible. Very first one I wanted to go over because I get so many calls. I'm sorry I don't have any other articles than this. This is your appraisal contingency addendum. Hopefully that looks familiar. Form ACA. The one kind of oddity, and everybody knows that this was redone recently, this kind of when COVID was going on and it was this huge swing back from a buyer's market really into the seller's market. They wanted to come up with a way, in my opinion, that they could make an appraisal contingency from a buyer a little more palatable to the seller who had most of the bargaining. So what they did is PAR came up with 2 options essentially. So everyone should know option 1 is your typical appraisal contingency, right? So that is where you say, my house has to appraise either for my purchase price or for a dollar amount that I'm going to write in, typically less than that purchase price. You're going to have a contingency period, 30 days within which you have to have your appraisal completed and reply back to the seller as a result of that appraisal contingency. If you miss that deadline, then you're out of the contingency period. If you fail to respond at all or just not get the appraisal within the 30 days, even if it's on the appraiser, you're still out of time to get an extension. And last but not least, if the home does not meet that minimum value, the buyer, keep in mind, the buyer has a right to provide termination notice to the seller and say, hey, sorry, I'm out, didn't meet that appraised value, right? Now, again, if that appraisal comes back and it's below that value that you've established under option 1, and you don't provide the notice of termination, you're still in the agreement of sale, okay? Your contingency is voided at. So I've had calls, unfortunately, no one from this brokerage, I won't out anyone, but they basically said, well, the house didn't appraise, right? So that's our out, but you still have to provide the termination notice that says the house didn't appraise during that time period, okay? And for that value. So option 1, hopefully very straightforward. You know, back when I would say more a stronger seller's market potentially, option 1 was not the favorable option because that way a seller is going to know, hey, you have offered much more than I've listed the property for, right? You're paying probably more than the property is worth. And I don't want to go down this path a month or 2 and then be stuck having to put my property back, right? I want to deal with you and get it done. So they came up with what is option 2. And option 2 basically says, if that a minimum appraisal amount is not met, right? So we're going to set that value, okay? And ordinarily what you're going to do is you're going to have your purchase price, but then that minimum value is going to be less in option 2. If you set the purchase price in option 2 as your minimum value, we'll see in a second why it kind of doesn't necessarily play out in terms of benefit for a buyer, but not to confuse you, it might be a little bit more palatable to an uninformed seller or listing agent, okay? So in this instance, if I have a $250,000 purchase price, I have a $250,000 appraisal contingency under option 2. If the home does not appraise for $250,000, I, as a buyer, guess what? I don't have a right to terminate the contract. I don't have a right to provide notice to say I'm out. What happens is that this agreement, this appraisal contingency, is now null and void. So I hope you've elected a financing contingency, because those are the terms that will now apply. Because if you haven't elected that financing contingency and only the appraisal contingency under option 2, guess what? You're back in the agreement. You're not gonna, this was of no effect really at the end of the day. Okay, so always teaching point, be using this appraisal contingency with your financing contingency. So hopefully, logically, if you've done that, you're getting kicked out because, hey, the house didn't appraise. I, though, as a buyer, can't terminate because I selected option 2. not option 2. Under my financing contingency, because the home didn't appraise likely for that purchase price or for whatever the loan amount that they were going to give me, now I won't be able to get the loan. But remember, a buyer has no right to terminate as a result of not being able to get a loan if they've elected a financing contingency. That is a seller's right to terminate. And in fact, under the agreement of sale now, it says if a buyer tries to terminate as a result of not being able to get a mortgage as a result of the financing contingency, guess who's in default? The buyer. So the seller now may have a right to keep your deposit because you tried to terminate unlawfully during, now it says it may be an event of default, but I'd be honest, there's going to be sellers out there who are going to want to push that issue. They're going to want to say, sorry, that deposit's now mine and you're not getting it, right? So be very aware of that. That was kind of a shock to everybody. Everyone was like, oh, well, under option 2, it didn't appraise, right? It didn't meet that minimum value. So I get to kick it out. That's not the case. Falls back to the seller can do it. Yeah, go ahead.
Elected as a contingency.
Yep.
Can't get the mortgage. Then it's the buyer's fault, then why?
Yep. The buyer's obligation to continue to apply to try to get the mortgage based on the financing terms that they've selected with other lenders up until the seller terminates the agreement of sale or the closing date. And if the seller doesn't do that, or if the buyer doesn't do it, the buyer doesn't continue to reapply or at least make, so you don't want to pull hard credit or anything. I mean, that's going to do maybe, but if you're not making those phone calls and keeping track of those calls, hey, here's the loan product that I've elected, had an appraisal that came in here, is there anything you can do for me? Up until the time the seller terminates or your closing date, your buyer's at risk of losing their loan. Because the buyer will be in default by failing to undertake those additional efforts. Yep, so and again, very shocking. I know everyone's like, wait.
Everyone's in that wrong.
Yeah, buyer contingency, right? I have a right to pull the trigger. If you look at that, it says no, seller can terminate. If you don't have that commitment by that period, but if the seller wants to say, no, keep applying, or the seller is hemming and hawing, do I want to try to fight this? It falls back to the buyer. And I've had hotline calls where very well seasoned agents have said to their buyers, don't continue to make those calls. If you got turned down from one reputable lender, you're likely going to get turned down from the other. And now they're in a position potentially at E&O because they've advised their buyer to commit a default under the agreements. So very tricky. Remember though, if you're looking for a buyer to be able to get out as a result of the house not appraising, you're selecting option 1. Okay. If you're looking for the wiggle room, and again, there's other options under option 2, but that was, let's say, $250,000 purchase price, $250,000 elected appraisal contingency value. That's how that plays out. The way this form is meant to be used, though, is to say, hey, I know I'm offering $300,000 and you've listed it for $250,000. I know realistically the property is not going to appraise for the $300,000. So to make my offer maybe a little bit more competitive and to say, I'm still going to do something without the seller having to come back and renegotiate with me or anything like that, I'm going to elect right off the bat, I'm offering $300,000, but if the house appraises for $275,000, I'm still going to take it. I will still have to do that. And the way I will have to take it, so to speak, is I'm going to come up with additional cash financing. I'm going to modify my loan product, either by loan to value ratio or by the amount of my, providing additional funds, adjusting your loan to value ratio, and then otherwise adjusting the loan products. Okay, so if you want to stay within that same loan product, then your loan to value ratio has to be adjusted accordingly. Okay, so that's the way that plays out there. So That's the risk, that's the danger, but that's also the benefit for a seller is saying, hey, I know that this person's gonna be in as long as I can appraise for 275. And if it doesn't appraise for 275, though, guess what? Hopefully you have the mortgage contingency because you're in the exact same boat. You can't terminate as a buyer under option 2. You can only terminate under option 1, right? So scare everybody enough yet? Any other questions on there? Okay, just very careful, read those forms. This kind of came as a shock to me when I read it after that revision. This form did not always read that way. It was most recently revised, I think, was in 2023, actually, to add that language. So just be aware.
Very painful 2-hour meeting in Harrisburg.
I imagine.
So what we've all been doing is just haphazardly writing on page 13 that our buyer will pay X over the appraisal. Effectively, option 2 is doing that,
Yes, that's right.
assuming that you line up your appraisal, your financing contingency appropriately.
That's correct. Yeah, and just keep in mind in that case. And you have to be careful about how you word that, because if you're not adding any other language, buyer will make up to, let's say, $20,000 of any appraisal deficiency.
Right.
If it is more than 20,000, I would put language in there that says buyer has a right to terminate as a result of that appraisal, almost as a de facto appraisal contingency, because if not, you're still gonna be stuck. And if you have a commitment date that's out a month or 2,
Right.
you're gonna have to have that buyer follow up and continue to do those items. All that shit.
Yeah, Jordan and up here and I, like painstaking, before they changed it.
Yep.
Painstakingly, we're like, okay, we have an escalation clause here, we have,
It's even more difficult. Yeah,
here,
absolutely.
we have, and it was like, we were like in this continuous loop of, how the heck do we get our client in a situation that's not gonna screw them in
Yeah.
the future, so.
Yeah, happen. And that's the other thing, is this attached as an indemnity agreement? You can counter back and say, no, it's a seller. If you're representing the seller, you're gonna be in a position, but if you're representing a buyer, that's where you really have to sit down and make sure you're doing homework and say, hey, financially, can we do, and then add in a sale and settlement of other property and all those other items that you're gonna have to line up. That's where you're gonna have to provide that service to your buyer. Yes.
You write in something that says buyer take and it comes up to be more than that, it's option 2 supersede what you wrote in.
Honestly, you were using this form. You were just writing. Oh, you were. Oh, okay. I thought you
We're kind of like, I mean, it was so confusing, they were like, let's double cover ourselves and we'll do
Okay.
this. And we'll add that. And
So you had it as an additional term in the agreement, still using this.
correct.
Okay, well, in that case, yeah, so as long as option 2 was selected. Then they would just need this, you'll say, hey, it's a $300,000 purchase price, and they were gonna fund up to 20,000 of the difference, then your appraisal would be 280,000. So that would be that minimum appraised value. So that way, if it comes in at 280, then they've agreed they're gonna fund up to $20,000 more, whether that's by bringing cash, whether that's by changing their loan product or doing whatever. But if it's below the 280, they fall back on their mortgage contingency, in that case, under option 2, where they'll have to show that they followed up lender, and then the lender or the seller has the right to terminate if they can't get it. Yeah, I mean, really, it's in that you're putting yourself where if you're gonna have contradicting language in your agreement of sale under additional term versus this, that's where I would be a little bit hesitant. You want to make sure that kind of flush each other out. Maybe in accordance with appraisal contingency attached here too. Here's the language or whatever that is, but this form will cover you as long as those numbers match out. Because this form does not specifically say buyer will fund X dollars, or that it just says that the house must appraise for at least this minimum value. And if it does, I'll fund the difference between the purchase price and that value. And if not, buyer in default, buyer loses. But
Yes, sir. I mean, if you're gonna use option 2, why even use it? Just like not put it in. Is there?
it's more, if you can explain that to a seller.
Yeah.
Let me back up. I agree with you from a technical perspective, because really, if a buyer is unable to get a loan, if you think that you're more aggressive for a seller, if they're still not going to be able to get a loan, what difference does it make? You're still going to be drawn out. Everyone's still going to be pissed at each other at the end of the deal, and everyone's, going back and forth. But from a practical perspective, as a buyer, if you show to them, hey, I'm willing to buy at 300, but I don't need it to appraise for that. I only need it to appraise for 280.
Yeah.
And more importantly, if it doesn't, then I still have to try to apply to get financing up until you terminate the agreement of sale. To a seller, that might sound more palatable than, hey, this has to appraise for 300, and if it doesn't, I'm terminating the agreement of sale. That's where it makes, I think, it depending on multiple offer situations or what how aggressive you want to be in framing your offer based on consultation with your buyer.
Yeah.
But that's where that can give you maybe an additional leverage, or, additional check mark in the pro column when they're considering that. That makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So using an option one and just saying, hey, we'll pay 10,000 higher than whatever the appraisal is up to or max of, is almost cleaner.
Yeah, that's
Because
again,
you
you're
could
asking
have
for
an
terms, though. Yeah. Yeah, and your point, yeah, you do have one, but let's say $300,000 purchase, but you put 290.
Right.
Yes. Yep, that's fine, because you're gonna come up with that difference no matter how that's going to be, because that's where it is. It has to appraise to them.
And then you're not gonna get out.
But if it does, it's.
Yeah, that seems so much cleaner.
Yes.
I feel like this form needs some more revision.
Hey, I'm not involved. I'm.
That's okay. It's helpful to understand.
No, I'm very short on time. I did want to touch on, I'm sorry. Did you, sorry. No, I actually did. Okay. Inspection timing, very briefly. I know that there's a lot of questions on this. If you have 10-day contingency period, it's 10-day default, once you guys fill it in. That's the time within which you have to have the inspection completed and the BRI back with a copy of the inspection report to the seller in that time period, okay? The buyer has the full 10 days, okay? So if you have a Johnny on the spot who's gonna come in as an inspector for radon, because I've selected a radon inspection separately from my whole house. And Mr. Radon comes in and they do an inspection on day 2, and there's high levels of radon, and I send a BRI to my seller with the inspection report for radon attached to it. And the seller says, oh, okay, I'm gonna agree to that. I'll sign off on the CTA, we go back, no more ability to change the agreement of sale, right? Because you signed the CTA, you had your bite at the apple. So sent the BRI, it didn't include anything else, and therefore that time has sunsetted. That's incorrect. Reason for that, there are 3 time periods you have to be aware of, all right? First one is contingency period. That's your 10-day period to do the inspections. The second one is negotiation period. Negotiation period is 5 days after contingency period ends, not 5 days after I provided the BRI and we've executed a CTA or done whatever. It is 5 days or 10 days, excuse me. If it commences after your 10-day contingency period, then I enter our 5 days, right? So as a seller, wait. All right, you have that full 10 days within which they might terminate. So you might be having it all. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Am I going to do all this? And then on day 10, they terminate the agreement of sale, and you wasted all that time worrying with it, right? So wait until the 10 days, sit down, and then no, you have 5 days now to decide with your agent, what am I going to do? What am I not going to do? What am I going to pay for? What am I going to ask them to pay? Things like that, okay? 5 days comes and goes, and let's say we don't have an agreement of sale. There's no CTA. We haven't extended our 5 days. So what happens in that case? There's 2 days the buyer has, I call it the put up or shut up time period. You're going to buy the property in its as is condition, or you're going to terminate the agreement of sale. And if you don't terminate, you're buying it as is. Okay. So that's the timeline. Time is of the essence. If you're terminating at 12:01 on day 3, guess who's not lawfully terminating the agreement of sale? And God bless DocuSign a document. And have it done in a millisecond from the time that you signed it. Okay, no backdating. So that's how you can get out of it. That's how they can keep you in it. But that's the time period. You get the full 10 days, you get the full 15, 30 days, whatever long you elect. You get that full time as a buyer. So let the buyer do their work, sit back as a seller, do your full analysis, including everything, right? And then decide what you're gonna do. Any questions on that?
Sorry, so the buyer, the seller goes and counters yours. Is that 2 days? There's 2 days after that, right?
Yes.
So does that 2 days start then? Does it start?
After negotiation, after negotiation, everything is after, you get the full 10, the full 5, and then if the seller comes back in day 2 and says, hey, wait, I agree to everything. That you proposed, that's up to the buyer. If the buyer says, you know what, I'm tired of dealing with you, you're outside of your 5-day negotiation period. The ball has not come back to life. And as a buyer, too bad you put me through the ringer. I'm moving somewhere else. Get back deposit. Or if they really want help, they can say, okay, now we can continue to negotiate, do our CTA, and sign that and make sure that is part of the agreement. Right? Now remember, you have 10, 5, and 2, But if you have a buyer and seller who are willing to work outside of that time frame, you can absolutely do that, right? The fact that you signed a CTA on day, what is that? So you have 10, 15, so on day 18, that modifies the agreement of sale, that will supersede your termination. Okay, because you met minds at that point, regardless of the time. It's just that either party, really the buyer, seller, then buyer has a right to kind of terminate at any time. Make sense? Yes, sir.
Reply to inspections, and you have multiple reply to inspections time, so they have radon and home inspection. Get the radon done, if that passes. Or if you need it done, send that in just with the radon check.
Yep.
And then when the home inspection's done, send that in, so you're just replying to that particular inspection.
And
can
you've
do
elected title, let's say you've elected the title contingency, so then you get the title report back. You can send that in with saying, hey, I object to these certain items. You have, environmental inspections. You have any other type septic report that might be separate.
You can do them
All
separately.
of them, you can do that, absolutely, all of them are separate, and that's why as a seller, you wait until the end of that contingency period. Review them during negotiation, make your offer, and then if they're still not happy, then the ball strips back, and then as a seller, they're either taking it as is or they're out.
So say, buyer and seller agree on day 8, sign everything.
Yep.
Can buyer come back day 9 or 10 and cancel?
No.
I don't,
You signed.
I knew that, but
You signed your CTA at that point. Now I will say, so on day 8, so you're within your contingency period, you're still within your 10
Yeah.
days. So at that point, yes, I could terminate my agreement of sale up until day 10. I misunderstood the question. I
yeah, so
apologize.
even if everything's
I've
signed,
signed a CTA. Now, I guess theoretically you could push the issue as a seller. And this is where I
Kind of
see
agreed
the sellers
upon,
getting a little creative in their BFRI saying in the CTA, buyer and seller agree contingency period is now ended. But if you don't have that language there, and we entered an agreement of sale regarding CTA and all the inspection reports and everything else, have until day 10 to agree to that. Now, I don't want to get even more to you, but if you only have a home inspection and you sign off on the BRI saying you're taking it as is as a result of that home inspection, I think you don't then have an ability to come back on the home inspection itself. Right?
If you go-
But like
if you go-
HOA docs, anything else, title, zoning, any of those other items, you could come back. Yep.
Right, so you're saying if you're the buyer, then you send the reply to inspection form in with an accept, you're done, right?
You're likely. Yeah.
We should, as a listing agent, you should push to get that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why the buyer needs to agree to do that. You can, let's wait. And if really on inspection, usually are tasked, right? That's the key. I guess if you want to leave an avenue open for pay for any other reason, you have not want to do that until the end of the. Any questions from you all? No. Final time, good. Need me to go?
I have
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
This has to do with inspections. If we write an offer and we want to do inspections for the buyer's information only, I want to know if this verbiage is okay. Inspections are for buyer's information only. Buyer will not request any repairs, but reserves the right to terminate the contract if inspections are unsatisfactory, with all deposit monies returned to buyer according to the terms of paragraph 26 of this agreement.
Very artfully drafted, I would say. Hopefully the attorney wrote that, and if not, they should be one. But that's good. That's the language I would recommend. You never just rely on the buyer's informational purposes only or for information only. But the additional language you added after that clarifies that buyer won't send a copy of the inspection report, but I still have a right to get out of the agreement based on those timelines and the provisions of 2016. So yeah, I think that's perfectly fine as long as, again, you explain that to your buyer. And when you receive that language, make sure you're explaining it to your seller.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
So hey, Peter,
Yeah.
one more thing, on the mortgage contingency.
Mhm.
I think there is a divide amongst agents, what that truly means. Like, a loan officer one time told me that the mortgage contingency is a appraisal contingency in theory.
Yeah, well,
And you're saying that, so here's real life situation. Unfortunately, this is my stepdaughter's house. We had a buyer. Things were going good. Come to find out, there was a car loan on his credit report that he refused to acknowledge who the car loan was for because he was co-signing. And because of that, loan was denied because he refused to voluntarily provide that information.
Mhm.
They didn't go to any other lender. And
Well, that's,
basically,
so before you even get there, that's a buyer default, because in the mortgage contingency. Paragraph, it says buyer has an obligation to be truthful and forthcoming with all information
Exactly.
requested by the lender.
so we kept
That's a
his
seller or a
deposit
buyer.
for months. And finally, she got her house sold, wasn't any financial hardship on her, we gave it back. But they sent the termination based upon financing. My answer to the other agent was, he lied. He didn't give information. He purposely did not work with the lender to make sure that he could or could not buy that house.
Yeah, and I mean, multiple layers to that, but I think first of all, yes, he doesn't have a right to terminate. Second of all, he's in default, he's not providing documentation that was requested, which is reasonable, like an outstanding loan and an obligation. And thirdly, he does not have the ability to terminate, which means that he's in default by trying to. So I think all of those things play in your favor, but that's exactly right. I mean, the mortgage contingency, to your first question, it is an appraisal contingency to the extent that if the home doesn't appraise for what it needs to appraise based on every loan, then you won't get the loan. You won't have an obligation to purchase the home as long as you follow up with additional due diligence efforts to try to get that
another
same
lender to give
product. And remember, appraisal contingency, when everybody thinks of that, is that the home didn't appraise, well, I determined. That's not the case in this instance. That the mortgage contingency is my home didn't appraise, so I now need to reapply, otherwise I'm gonna lose my deposit up until the seller terminates or our contract period comes.
Like if you have funds that you didn't want to use, that's not necessarily a reason not to.
No, and again, that's the fault of the lender.
Then the other one, and this came up, and Seth, he brought this up, the return of deposit. It's what,
80 days.
80 days. You can change that line.
That's correct.
Is that something you recommend to do? 30 days, 45 days?
It's up to your buyer and your seller, really how quickly they can move. File mediation paperwork overnight. You can email the documents with the check REACT to have litigation started for that time period. So if you're a seller, I'm not gonna want anything less than probably 30 days. So at least I can sit, I can review, determine what I want to do, maybe consult with an attorney. Do I have a chance here? And then initiate mediation proceedings accordingly. If I'm a buyer, I don't want to wait 180, I don't want to wait 6 months to get it back. So I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. So I can't recommend a time period, but all I will say is that the shorter in duration to me is really beneficial to everybody, because ordinarily, if you have a seller, 6 months comes and goes, with your 4 months out, you're not even remembering what's going on, right? Like in your instance, you bought a property, you've moved on, everything's fine. I have no claims to part to just give it back. If you have to make that decision within 30 days, it forces you to kind of confront the issue.
And after that days, then the broker who's holding the deposit determines who that goes back to.
No, it's the buyer has the right to request it from the broker holding the deposit. And in that case, if the broker has no verifiable evidence that litigation has been commenced, within 30 days, they have to cut the check back to the buyer. And obviously that agent, the listing agent who receives that, needs to now provide notice to the seller and say, hey, we're outside of that time frame, therefore, I need to now give this money back. So I want you to be aware that that's happening. If that's how that process plays out, they don't decide who goes to or who's entitled or anything like that. All the broker does is receive instruction, verify whether or not litigation started, and if not, they have an obligation to disperse the money.
They start litigation on day 35, but the letter hasn't arrived.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You can do it up until the point where.
Up until the point when the buyer requests it back. Yeah, the trigger is they get the letter from the buyer. They then review, they call, normally REACT is mediation. They'll likely call the seller and say, hey, have you done it? So the seller says no, say, hey, look, I have this obligation now to give this money back. And that's, you want to disclose that, and when you send that check back, there's the sellers, so then they know what.
If the buyer didn't do any of that, then the seller automatically gets a check.
Seller has to initiate litigation. The only automatic disbursement is the expiration of the timeline and the buyer requesting it back. The seller has no right to request to get the deposit unless they file.
When the buyer terminates, asking for the deposit, the termination form pattern. And then you hear crickets.
Yep.
Who gets the check?
No, until the buyer the timeline expires. right? 180 days after your contract settlement date, or the time period you decide, or the buyer could potentially initiate litigation before then to try to get a judgment and basically say it's my money, or the seller could do that as well.
Nobody should have had that. And then the buyer after that timeline. What if the buyer still hasn't done anything then?
Not sure I understand, but so the listing broker gets the check, right? Let's say settlement just doesn't occur, parties default, whatever, settlement date happens. Let's say you have 30 days written in as your contingency period within which if not, the buyer can then request it back. 30 days comes and goes, nothing happens. You reach out to the buyer, reach out to the seller, nobody has talked to you. And I have clients and brokerages like this where they are 6-7 years out where they're still holding us from that position, but because you legally have to, and you're not allowed, and a lot of them it's like $2,000, so you're not going to want to pay an attorney to file suit money into court to decide, let the court decide who gets it. So what I normally recommend is you're reaching out to both the buyer and the seller saying, hey, we're still holding this money. It's not ours. One of you needs to do something. But legally, unless one of two things happens, the buyer, only buyer, requests to have that back and there's no pending litigation, or there's litigation and a court order decides who gets it. That's the only way. The seller has no right to request it back. Yeah. Make sense? Cool. Get the hook here. Any other questions?
Yes, one more real quick. Situation, buyer submits offer, seller does not respond within the expiration. They change terms, they initial it properly, they send it back.
Seller does.
Seller sends it back. Buyer then initials everywhere that they made the changes, but that expiration date is still been passed.
No, that's not. Yeah, they're still within that time period. The seller, so the ratification period, right? That's you have until, let's say, January 2nd. As a seller, because I'm writing in the offer to accept my term. Seller gets back on January 5th and says, hey, I don't like those terms, but I'll counteroffer. They've now made an offer to you. No ratification date is within that offer. So they or I guess, yeah, that you have as a buyer now in response to that counter until the seller withdraws that counter. So yeah, the buyer could say, no, sorry, you got back, I'm out of time. I put that timeline in particular because I'm looking for a home, I've moved on. Or they can look at it and say, okay, I like this, I'm gonna either accept it or I'm gonna counter back and then maybe engage in that. But if that's the case, just remember, there's no the only ratification time is on the response back coming from the seller. So, yep, so it has to be under agreement by that time frame. And then the buyer has a right, basically, hey, you got back to me, you've agreed to my offer, but it's 5 days out. We're not under contract. It's the offer's been.
But the acceptance date.
Yeah, the acceptance date was never changed.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So this agreement must be accepted no later than January, whatever, of 2024. You send it off and they don't respond by that deadline.
Correct.
Seller then counters after that deadline. The buyer accepts the counter.
Correct.
Neither party can now come back and say, wait, we didn't do it by that deadline. Right? Because the fact that you've reached an agreement, met the minds, that timeline again is only allowing the buyer or really imposing an obligation on the seller to reply back. And it allows the buyer to get out if they want. It's a voidable contract, say to the buyer. If the buyer doesn't want it, buyer moves forward, we accept the agreement, we're now under agreement.
And if the seller does change that acceptance date, that's when it would expire going back.
Necessarily, yeah, change the ratification date if you want. I mean, again, if you're outside of that, if you really want to be belt suspenders about it, but the fact that they reached the agreement, regardless of the timeline, it's the same thing with your contingency period. You send a BRI on day 12, seller accepts by a CTA, they can't come back and say, oh, wait, you weren't allowed to do that. I didn't have to accept that. You should have had better counsel. You outsigned it. So that's the way it play out. Yeah. All those timelines, again, those are set there for the reason of allowing the other party or both parties to get out of the agreement. If they want, you don't have to, right? I have a ratification date, it comes and goes, 6 months down the road, the seller then agrees to it, and I as a buyer am still open. Your lender might say, oh, we need to modify this, that, or the other, but from a legal perspective, you've reached an agreement of sale, you're bound by that, by way of spending, so.
I got a super quick one. Service animal on a showing.
Service animal on a show. That's interesting, so private property is not governed the same way as public. So you have a right to preclude, potentially, I would say, a service animal, as long as there's an articulable basis for that. an allergy, some other medical basis, you have other pets that get riled up as a result of that. But remember that, I think that would be a reasonable item, but I think you would need to say, reasonable accommodations will be provided upon request. Something along those lines, just to get over the hump of potential discrimination.
I was thinking about like someone with a pet, so allergies are.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why I think that an outright ban, you're gonna get some scrutiny there, but yeah, it's not like public property where you're inviting people to come into your home. You have a right to exclude anybody. I mean, even on private property, say that you have a right to be discriminatory. You can say, I don't want this person who, has one leg coming on my property because I only want people with 2 legs. Right? That's all. But that's not illegal. What is illegal though is if you are operating something that's open to the public, and you're discriminating in that. So now it's an interesting question. So I'm gonna look into it a little bit more, but that's my reaction is that's private property. You have a right to do that. It's not necessarily prohibiting that person from getting access as long as you're providing some other reasonable accommodation for them. So, and again, you can virtually tour homes. That's the other thing.
Right.
It's like, so it's
Um,
true.
yeah.
And there should be also though, because someone restating what the.
So we all know that we're not allowed to provide love letters from buyers to sellers.
Wow. Rolling through.
How fair is it for a list agent to require a buyer agent to have the lender provide credit scores, where they work, length of employment, and all this detailed information? How is that not a reverse? Like, we want to know the detrimental part, but you can't love our estate. Yeah. So there's several agents that do it. I'm not a fan of it. And I put some kind of language in there that says, because what happens if the person doesn't settle on the house or something falls through? You're going to go to their place of work. Are you going to harass them? Are you going to, what are you going to do with this information? You're a realtor. Yeah.
This is protected by law.
Yeah.
So if you or you get hacked on your personal Gmail or AOL.
And that's what I say to the other agent. You're not responsible for all this information because it's stuff I don't keep. That's why we have a local lender that knows what they're doing.
Well, it's not illegal, it's part of the negotiation. And it's up to the buyer and the seller to kind of negotiate. That's why I'm saying it's a seller's market, it's more of an inclination for the buyer to say, what does it matter? Well, in a buyer's market, hey, I can provide any of that, I don't want. So I think that comes and goes, but that is part of the negotiation. I think, but to your point, if you're providing that information, make sure it comes with the caveat that all of this is considered non-public personal information, and you're going to be governed by law in terms of your possession.
Something for us to use, because up till now I've done my own little legal speak.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I just don't understand why that's allowed for an agent to have that information when.
It's the same thing. It's not illegal or unlawful or unregulated in and of itself. It is the fact that.
We have some brokerages that say
Oh,
absolutely.
I agree. But that, more importantly, is because I think they don't have control over their seller. So where the issue comes in is that the seller gleans, like any certain human being, certain information during grammar. And that infers intellect, and that infers all sorts of other demographic information, where now even subconsciously that seller might be saying, I don't think I want to sell my property, or I want to sell it to this person.
But yet people have to bring doorbell cams and all.
I get it. And that's
like.
Written documentation. When I call you to the stand and I say, did you read this letter before you denied my client's offer? And you're gonna have to say, yes, I absolutely did. And what in there did you not, and that's just what, and not saying that you committed any type of discriminatory act. It's just, it leaves the seller really prone to the accusation that you considered this over that because of I have 2 kids, or my son has a disability, or I have a dog, and this, that, and I thought you might look better in the community than this other person who doesn't have those quantities or qualities. So that's where I think you have to really mesh that out. But that's, again, the love letter in and of itself is not unlawful, but just like I was talking about the negotiation, you can put that in your MLS all you want, and any brokerage can say, hey, no love letters, and any love letters will not be. Brian, did you?
Yeah, so a buyer terminates without any cause whatsoever. There doesn't seem to really be a form for that. There's a termination because of cause, and there's the release of escrow. So unfortunately, I had a situation where that happened. I just used the standard form and put in NA, you know, just, we didn't want to keep them
Yeah, I guess
dragging along.
there should be some basis. I mean, was it a result of an inspection? They found a better property, just wanted to move on. Okay, yeah, then I would say buyer terminates. Yeah, crazy. Okay, yeah, we have all of this. But I would just write, since you can write in there, NA, you could just write in, buyer hereby elects to terminate the agreement of sale. What they're trying to do is link it to your contingencies to say, hey, I didn't like this, I didn't, you know,
Right.
HOA docs or something along those lines. But yeah, you just have to be ready that a seller is gonna do that. So you had no right to terminate. And that's an invalid termination and it's gonna keep your deposit. And if you're the seller, accept the termination, right? But don't agree to release the deposit. Because now you still have that right to say, hey, that was an invalid termination, but they're out, I'm gonna relist, but we're still gonna fight over the deposit. Good point. I think he's gonna start strangling me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I should have brought lunch.
do we want
You can exit that.
to go on forever? Like a internal class that's specifically that, so.
And I'm happy to do that. And sign up for your CEs if you're doing that, because I'm teaching the contracts, the best of the hotline through RAAC. Both of them are gonna be via Zoom, so I'll just pajamas. I will just work. Suit tie, there we go. Yeah, I know you can go over great. Get more detail and all the other items. The thing I didn't talk about and I didn't scare you all too much is obviously, you know, what's going on with the anti-side of things. So we're really going to hammer in on buyer agency, listing agreements, making sure the terminology you're using with your clients who are reading at that 5th or 6th grade level is truly what it needs to be law. So, yeah, check that out. I'm going to do that. And if not, I'm happy to go back if you guys want something else. Oh, thank you.
That's good, right? All right, well, we'll get him back on the schedule. Probably, I got Steve, I'm trying to work Steve for February, March, and maybe he can come in around it too, so. Last call for business cards,
How do we give?
last call.
You said you.
All right. So. Help the guy out.
Yeah.
All right, because it's winter, we have new blankets. And you can be there. I don't know where to put them. You can put them.
Thank you. If I, oh.
Yeah, like. Take my like events.
Steve, I did Amazon. I saw through the Visa gift card because it is a nightmare to get there. Because you have to pay cash. And I can't even use my debit card, so I gave up on it. So we're just gonna do different gift cards. Obviously transaction monthly. Got the 2 blankets. I think that's all I got this month. We'll keep adding different things over the course of the year. All right. Sit up front, you get it.
Bill.
Ah. All right, so. And are you gonna guide them on this? So
Go ahead, you got it.
there's 2 blankets if you want a blanket. Transaction fee is for $295, that's a freebie on your first deal. The 110 is your monthly, that's a freebie if you choose that one, or Sheets card or Amazon card, they're both $50. Yes. Doing yours on. Right on the back.
That's it. It's except for Andy.
I already did it. Figured you script was face salads. Other than that. And actions, you got that.
Alright. Oh, see, that's what a team leader does, puts a team member's cards for you.
My car's not in it. Yeah.
You win every week.
You just won.
Alright.
Yeah, there you go. The blankets are good too, because for some reason this 2-year-old building cannot really eat. It just drives me nuts. Here's the problem. Then everyone's gonna leave it on and then it's gonna burn, actually, it's gonna burn it down. You build a new one with you. Don't tell the insurance, I got a big one.